Live from the Devil Radio Studios in Madison, Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning. Welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Here is your host, Mike Crute.
Welcome to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, the Tuesday edition. Fancy Brian on the board. Fancy, you know, I have checked several times today, and you and I agree on this notion. This can't possibly be Tuesday, man. It's got to be like Thursday.
No, it's absolutely at least Thursday.
It feels like a Thursday.
At least Thursday.
It's not Thursday. It's only Tuesday.
As far as you can tell, and I've been told from several sources, and that's how I know that it's probably Tuesday, because several sources have told me it's not just one and not just my heart, which tells me it's Thursday.
Damn it, man.
That's
actually, and not only that, but Monday being a banking holiday and a mail holiday, you know, some of the functions of business just didn't happen on Monday. And we had some other mischief chaos going on. So anyways, let's get to the politics, Fancy Brian. And I've got a shocking headline. Before we get to it, a less shocking headline. Do you see Rojo did a poll? Our pal, Ron Johnson, great state of Wisconsin. Thought we'd start by talking about Rojo. Where's his poll? He went to Twitter and he set up a Twitter poll. And, you know, Rojo, he's a bright guy. And this happened just a couple hours ago. Ron Johnson campaign poll flops when it's overwhelmingly supportive of getting rid of the filibuster. So Rojo puts out there, and I mean, hardly a push poll at all, the way Rojo kind of words it. He's got this poll. I don't know if you're aware, but you can poll people on the Twitterverse. So he puts up this poll. Do you want to implode, all caps? You know, he's doing the Trumpian all caps, to implode the filibuster so the Dems can ram, RAM, all caps, their voting rights legislation through the Congress. Yes, let the Dems win, all caps, or no, protect, capital, the Senate. And he put it out there. I guess it's been 23 hours ago. And early indications are, yes, let the Dems win. And it's not really close, Fancy Brian. 95% the current polling in favor of blowing up the filibuster. And I mean, it's not like 10 people voted, you know, because you okay over there, big guy?
No, yeah, I'm great. That's a byproduct of stuff.
It's not like 10 people voted, you know, because I've seen those small sample polls.
So how many people?
At that time, when it was 95 to 5%, there were over 22,000 votes.
Huh. That's a suspicious number, by the way.
I'm a little suspicious that Rojo didn't think it was going to go that way.
We need an investigation into the outcome of this poll.
Yes. Anyways, I think that's the gist of the Rojo poll. So that's not exactly the most important headline of the day.
But he did use a lot of capitalization, which is how you know they're right wing.
He's so Rojo. Here is the topic, perhaps the more important lead. The topic that Americans believe in. All Americans. And this is a rare topic indeed. 2/3 of Americans support banning lawmakers from trading stocks.
Yeah.
It's just damn corrupt. And actually, I'm gonna jump down in the body of the work because I've read this polling, and thehill.com's got a representation of the polling. Here's the important part. You know, just my little opinion. 75% of respondents who identified as Democrats say they strongly or somewhat support a ban on lawmaker stock trading. 76% of independents, third-party survey takers, and 70% of Republican respondents agree. And they all agree that lawmakers shouldn't be stock pickers, nor should their spouses. And this is actually, and this might shock some of you, you know, outside of the day traders out there listening to the Devil's Advocates all day. This one already passed the Senate. This bill passed the Senate. This bill has bipartisan support.
What?
And you know where it's jammed up at? Nancy Pelosi won't let the House vote on it.
Are you serious? Oh,
I'm absolutely
yeah.
serious. And Nancy Pelosi and her husband, they've done okay with their stock picking, let's just say.
Was that wrong?
Well, it's currently not illegal. And even if you cross a line, let's just say, there are minuscule fines. It's a slap on the wrist at worst. So anyways, the headline there, like 2/3 of Americans, but if it's 76% of Democrats and like 70% of Republicans and something similar of independents, that's more than 2/3 of Americans, unless there's some undesignated column I'm unaware of in the crosstabs. But that's a lot of Americans. That's over 70% of Americans, with or without the A. They think it's corrupt. They don't want to see their electeds benefiting because, we can all have our little, mutual funds or a 401k, but it's different when you're picking individual stocks. And you could be, let's just say, accused of having a conflict of interest because sometimes lawmakers, they're privy to information you and I just don't know. Sometimes classified. Sometimes they are aware, perhaps the president's going to push an agenda come down the pike. And if you invested, let's say, in Tesla or electric vehicle stocks, because the president was pushing his new electric vehicle agenda, well, you might see a nice bump in your stock portfolio. So there is one person currently blocking this legislation, bipartisan legislation, and it's Nancy Pelosi. And I don't know if you know, but she's worth a lot of money. Here's a headline. This an opinion piece over at the Daily Beast. And you can always join us. Your opinions are welcome here as well. 844-967-2789. Got John Nichols. Always favor his opinions coming at the bottom of this hour. So just a little bit. But in the meantime, wanted to tell you a little bit about the 100 million reasons why no one trusts Nancy Pelosi. I'll read. Democrats have the opportunity to do something that is good for the country that would be commonsensical and populist. So why won't Nancy Pelosi let them? I'm talking about the Ban Congressional Stock Trading Act, introduced by Democratic Senators Mark Kelly and John Ossoff. This legislation, like a similar bill offered by Republican Josh Hawley, that guy, would prohibit members of Congress and their families, such as Pelosi's husband, Paul Pelosi, from buying and selling stocks while they serve. It would help combat the growing consensus that the game is rigged for the powerful and connected, a sentiment shared by top Biden economic advisor Brian Deese. Indeed, among some observers, the idea that top political leaders aren't engaged in insider trading has become a joke. As NPR's Tim Mack recently reported, and here's a quote, among a certain community of individual investors on TikTok, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's stock trading disclosures are a treasure trove. In fact, Mack writes, you can get a push notification every time Pelosi's stock trading disclosures are released. First, though, a brief and recent history of the toxic problem it is. In the midst of the financial meltdown, you remember that, Fancy Brian? Let's call it September 16th, 2008. Treasury Secretary Hank Paulson and Federal Reserve Chairman Ben Bernanke held a secret meeting with members of Congress. The result, as Business Insider noted, was that congressmen privy to this information reacted, not by dropping everything and drawing up a plan to save the economy, but by dumping stock and avoiding the losses everyone else would take in the coming month. Others bought stocks in financial firms that would later be saved by the federal government. Does that bother you? Because it bothers me a little bit.
Yeah, especially since we spent an entire 4 years railing against Trump about the emoluments clause and, putting out and profiting from the presidency, things like that. I think it's kind of hypocritical.
The 2008 events were detailed in a 2011 book, Peter Schweitzer's Throw Them All Out, which in turn inspired a segment on 60 Minutes. But the story wasn't just about the financial meltdown. One of the politicians featured in the segment was Nancy Pelosi, who participated in the 2008 initial public offering from Visa. As 60 Minutes noted, just as troublesome piece of legislation that would have hurt credit card companies began making its way through the House undisturbed by a potential conflict of interest, the Pelosi's, whose net worth is well over $100 million, purchased 5,000 shares of Visa at the initial price of $44. 2 days later, it was trading at $64. Ooh, that's a nice little bump. The credit card legislation never made it to the floor of the House. And it is a bipartisan problem, and Pelosi was far from the only lawmaker featured in that memorable 60 Minutes episode that helped spark passage of the Stop Trading on Congressional Knowledge, the Stock Act, if you will, a flawed piece of legislation codifying that it is illegal for members of Congress to use any non-public information derived from the individual's position or gained from performance of the individual duties for personal benefit. At least that's what the law is supposed to do. The real test would come during the next crisis, which turned out to be the COVID-19 pandemic. Despite the law, members of Congress who received coronavirus briefings in early 2020 made suspicious stock trades just after they found out, just ahead of the public and the markets, how bad the pandemic could be. Despite the Stock Act, none of the members received any serious punishment. There's more. Matt Lewis wrote this piece at the Daily Beast. I'm just sharing some of it with you. We need a little reset. Joe Biden needs to do something different. How about we reset? We lead with some ethics. How about that? And how about you call the Speaker's office and you encourage her to bring the Stock Act to the floor? You know, the new improved version. Because my speaker, your speaker, our speaker shouldn't be picking stocks, nor should her husband to their own personal benefit. Come back, Devil's Advocates. Phone lines open, 844-967-2789.
Was that wrong? Should I not have done that?
This is like bowl of doggy do. Put a cherry on top and call it a chocolate sundae.
I gotta plead ignorance on this thing.
No, I don't take responsibility at all.
If anyone had said anything to me at all when I first started here, that's...
You love them enough to do anything for them.
Mom, I need to be wiped. Coming.
Including checking nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure they're in the right car seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
600,000 Wisconsin families are receiving checks to help take care of their kids, thanks to the expanded child tax credit passed by Joe Biden and congressional Democrats. Ron Johnson voted against these checks for Wisconsin families, despite voting for a 2017 tax break that put more money into the pockets of millionaires like himself. It's time to vote Ron Johnson out of office. MoveOn.org political action, paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertisement. Poll.moveon.org, not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
President Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election.
Collectively, Republicans got 1.661 million votes, 51,000 more votes than Trump got.
He exhausted his cases. He exhausted the court challenges.
All the Republicans voted for Trump the way they voted for the assembly candidates, and he would have won.
It was not rigged. It was not stolen. Donald Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election. It's really clear.
This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at p4ppc.org.
What is dedication?
I think a parent's job is to protect our children, but also prepare them for the world so they become good, kind human beings.
That's dedication. Find out more at fatherhood.gov.
Spruce up your home with soy candles from Wisco Home Goods. I'm Don, one of the owners of this family-owned Midwestern business in Madison, Wisconsin. Our candles are 100% sustainable and come in a variety of unique blends and scents. Did you know our candle jars are also double old-fashioned glasses? That's right, buy a candle and you get a free cocktail glass. Check out our blog at wiscohomegoods.com/blog for more information. That's wiscohomegoods.com/blog.
The Devil's Advocates, radio for the 99%.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show, the Tuesday edition. Want to talk more with you, our fair audience, 844-967-2789. That is the phone number. I'll say it slower, 844-96-PARTY. It is a political party up here each and every afternoon. Appreciate you joining us. I got John Nichols joining me very soon. Could be time for your calls on the phone in between. Once again, that number 844-967-2789. Before I close the loop on the thought, maybe get your opinions on the stock trading and the Nancy Pelosi. I want to point out, Fancy Brian, the former Attorney General of the United States has got a new book coming out.
Which former Attorney General?
The former Attorney General, Bill Barr.
Gotcha. See, I was thinking Sessions. That's why I was like, okay.
I thought Sessions maybe already had a book.
I assumed that it would take him longer to write. That's all.
Well, Bill Barr, apparently he's got a new book coming out in March.
Great. And so that's what he was doing the whole time.
He was Attorney General under two administrations. You know, he will put his own spin on the Iran-Contra issue and the cover-up thereof, you know, because he played an instrumental part under H.W. Bush.
Yeah, that helped a lot, didn't it?
And then, you know, there's conversations about all the important issues, everything like COVID and immigration law, all the way through the post-2020 election, because let's not forget, he didn't resign until about December 23rd of 2020. Bill Barr, the former Attorney General, and the name of that book. And you may wonder, what's the name of the book? What's he calling the book? Well, I won't keep it from you any longer, Fancy Brian. He's calling the book One Damn Thing After Another. One damn thing.
Really?
Let me make sure I got that right.
Poor guy.
I'd hate to misreport what he's calling the damn book. One damn thing after another. Sounds a lot like my life.
Oh, poor guy. You know, he's had it rough ever since he left the Dinosaurs TV show.
Pre-order on Amazon. You know, I think this is his revisionist version of history. I would wonder, though. I would wonder, and he's probably got a smart legal mind. The guy was the Attorney General twice of the United States. But, you know, if the entire administration is perhaps, or big chunks of it, soon to come under indictment, let's just say, you know, maybe just some wishful thinking on my part, but I got some predictive logic why that might be the case. I wouldn't be writing a tell-all.
Yeah, unless you're trying to maybe set yourself up for a future defense, perhaps. And then saying, I don't have to testify now. You can just refer to my book where I laid it all out.
Who else? John Bolton tried some crap like that, didn't he?
Yeah.
Wouldn't give testimony at the impeachment, but wrote a book.
Good for him.
Yeah.
He made some money, right? Good for that guy. If he had only just taken stock tips and traded it, he could be in Congress by now.
What makes you think that Bill Barr wasn't using insider stock information and trading on it?
Goodwill?
Oh, yeah. Seems like such a fine chap. Let's get to the phones. Your opinions matter here. CJ from Beaver Dam, the good CJ. Welcome, sir. What do you got for us?
Michael.
Yes,
buddy.
sir.
I just wanted to point out, I did notice yesterday that you didn't want anybody calling in with my name.
Well,
but that other guy from Stoughton,
he gives CJ's a bad name. What can I say, man?
Of being a Republican.
I'm sorry, I stepped all over you. Say it again.
He broke rule number 3 of being a Republican.
And what's that?
Never show your true colors.
And
so
that's
I just
cryptic.
wanted to point that out. That's rule number 3.
What's rule number 1? Steal underpants?
It depends on how bad you want to keep your FCC license.
Well, pretty bad. Pretty bad, I got to admit. Because then you would become the
Rule
bad
1 and
CJ.
Rule 2, I'm not telling you, brother.
Well, I'll just keep it cryptic then. 844-967-2789. Better cryptic than profane, I guess. Mark, you remember that. Don't you be the bad one. Welcome back, Mark, from the SAC.
Thank you, brother. And for the train conversation that was going on before, the train song that came to mind was the Train to Bangkok by Rush. That's a good train song, and for Bill Barr, there's one thing after another is going to damn Bill Barr because he just committed so many crimes during his tenure, helped cover up so many crimes that turned his eyes the other way when
But even he, Mark, even he apparently had his limits. Did you notice he got out before January 6th? I mean, this plot was already in place, right? The Green Bay sweep. There were already, I almost said Biden, Trump administration officials like Stephen Miller going on Fox News talking about the alternative fraudulent slate of electors that were going to be challenged, and we're going to challenge the valid slate of electors. So this plan was already underway. And ironically, the attorney general, resigns 3 days later and writes a book.
Yeah, that smells a little fishy to me, because maybe he should have been opening his mouth, and maybe some of the tragedies that happened on that day wouldn't have happened that had he opened his mouth and let say part one of the whole insurrection go forward. Because I think it was a two-part act.
I think you're right. But if he'd have opened his mouth any broader, he'd have looked like a Billy Barr bass. Remember those Billy Bass? They'd sing on the wall.
Yeah. It's a made for TV commercial type of thing.
Now, if you put some glasses on the Billy Bass, he looks a little like the former attorney general.
I'm going back to the Dinosaurs TV show. The guy, the little baby that said "not the mama." That's a spitting image of Bill Barr for sure.
Between you and Mark, you've completely lost me in this segment. I'm glad I got a fine journalist in John Nichols to bring me back to grounded in the next segment. John joining us next. John Nichols from The Nation, from the Cap Times, from your heart, because you love them just like I do. John Nichols joins the Devil's Advocates next. Please stick around.
Well, history's written by the winner, so it largely depends on who's writing the history.
I'm Satan reincarnated.
A bit snitty.
Here we are, the young contender, scrappy, controversial, has an impressive reach. Devil Radio 92.7. Oh, boy, I could use a drink.
Me too, but why you sound so down about it?
Well, with everything going on, it's hard to feel safe going out with friends to a bar.
Listen, man, you need to head over to the Jade Monkey. Hawk shares our values, and even while you're unplugging over a cold one, you can rest easy knowing you're supporting a like-minded, locally owned business.
Head over to the Jade Monkey at 217 Cottage Grove Road.
I know where it is. I just told you about it.
Shut up.
Brad.
I was telling my phone. Now I have to say it again. Jade Monkey, 217 Cottage Grove Road.
Suck down drinks so we don't have to suck.
Okay.
President Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election.
Collectively, Republicans got 1.661 million votes, 51,000 more votes than Trump got.
He exhausted his cases. He exhausted the court challenges.
All the Republicans voted for Trump the way they voted for the assembly candidates. He would have won.
It was not rigged. It was not stolen. Donald Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election. It's really clear.
This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at P4PPC.
Coronavirus update. I'm Ben Thomas with an AP News Minute.
Omicron continues to sweep the world. Last week, there were more than 18 million reported cases.
Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, Director General of the World Health Organization. While Omicron may be causing less severe disease on average, COVID-19 deaths in the U.S. are climbing. Forecasters say 50,000 to 300,000 more Americans could die by the time this wave subsides. The 7-day rolling average of deaths has been trending upward since November, reaching nearly 1,700 yesterday, though that's still well below the peak of 3,300 last January. Meanwhile, the Biden administration has quietly launched its website for Americans to request free at-home COVID-19 tests. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki.
COVIDtest.gov is in the beta phase right now, which is a standard part of the process typically as it's being kind of tested.
I'm Ben Tom.
We're planning a trip to Spain later this year.
But our Spanish
is pretty bad.
When you learn a language, you want to actually use it. Babbel is designed with that goal in mind. Babbel's conversation-based method teaches you real-life words and phrases. And with Babbel's interactive, bite-sized lessons, you'll remember what you learned.
¿Cómo te llamas?
¿Cómo te llamas?
¿De dónde eres?
¿De dónde eres?
No matter your learning style or experience level, Babbel has lessons designed for you that will get you speaking quickly and confidently.
I tried learning Spanish before, but I couldn't stick with it until I found Babbel.
There's no easier way to learn another language.
Ahora hablamos español.
He just said, now we speak Spanish.
I can't wait to use our new language skills on our upcoming adventures.
Babbel, language for life, celebrating 10 million subscriptions sold. Now try Babbel for free at babbel.com. Just go to babbel.com and start learning a new language today. That's babbel.com, babbel.com.
For Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM. I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines. Last Friday, Wisconsin Attorney General Josh Kaul stated in an email that he believes the federal government is the jurisdiction that needs to investigate a set of fraudulent electors submitted by Republicans in Wisconsin back in December of 2020 in hopes of contesting the presidential election results of Joe Biden's victory in Wisconsin and several other swing states around the country. Attorney General Kaul's comments came after the Michigan Attorney General recommended federal prosecutors open a criminal investigation into the matter. Republican state lawmakers have introduced new legislation to ban discrimination based on vaccination status surrounding the COVID-19 vaccine, but school districts across Wisconsin may begin to face legal battles if the proposal were to pass due to long-standing requirements in public schools for vaccination against polio, hepatitis B, measles, and a number of other diseases. You're listening to Devil Radio.
Save the $2 on tomorrow's paper. Listen to the Devil's Advocates today.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. I welcome back a fine guest. He is John Nichols from The Nation, from the Cap Times here locally in Madison. John, welcome back. How you doing, my friend?
I am okay, but what's that music you're playing there?
Well, I'm playing, and this was at my request. I'm playing Freshman. We Were Only Freshmen, or something that song's called. Verb Pipe, I believe. John,
the state of Michigan is happy.
I for something a little edgier, man.
I'm sorry, John. You know, there was a void that had to be filled, and
I understand.
I wanted to fill it in honor of the near completion of Joe Biden's freshman year of his presidency. So that's a long ways to go, John. I hope you went with me.
I got you. I'm kind of more of a Alice Cooper school's out for summer kind of guy. But I recognize your sophisticated approach here.
Is that what it is, John? Sophistication.
I bow to your deep analysis of the calendar.
Okay, I appreciate that, John. I'm going to take that as a compliment. Let's talk about the president, though. It's been a tough freshman year. The Republicans have hung this guy in the lockers a couple times, John. And I think he's getting wedgies from Sinema and Manchin and his own party. I mean, I'm glad my freshman year was survivable. Will it be for Joe Biden?
Well, yeah, he's going to survive it. I think he's just got to make it another day or so. And, chances are that the averages are on his side. So he'll make it through. The question is, how he survived it, in what form. And right now, frankly, it doesn't look very good. His approval ratings are lousy, way lower than you'd want them to be. That's not that shocking. I think a Democratic or a Republican president at this time might have some rough ratings because we're going through Omicron and everything else. Got inflation, the whole bit. But he's not getting much credit for what he has accomplished, and it is important to understand that he did accomplish some pretty impressive things. Number one, putting to bed the Trump presidency, that was a good thing. Number two, getting the American Relief Act passed, which was a good thing. Getting a pretty decent infrastructure measure passed, that was a good thing. Getting a cabinet filled out with some pretty competent people, doing a lot of judicial picks, beginning to, fill up the ambassadorships with competent folks, including Tom Barrett over in Luxembourg. Give them all that. The problem, of course, is that since about midsummer, it started to be really shaky. the administration strategy for kind of playing a long game has not worked out well. They took too much time to try and pass Build Back Better, lost whatever energy they had on that, and ended up in a situation where, of course, Manchin and Sinema, Manchin in particular in that case, tripped it up. And so a huge part of their domestic agenda is sort of, at sea or adrift at this point. And then on voting rights, democracy, what they should have done in January of 2020, coming off of the January 6th coup attempt by Trump and his allies and its aftermath, in the period of the impeachment fight, where it's notable that 50 Democrats and 7 Republicans voted to convict Donald Trump, that's the point at which they should have made a major play on securing democracy. And they didn't. They waited way too long. Now they're in a situation where it's very hard, if at all possible, to enact, basic democracy protections that are needed. And so, I got to say, I don't know that I'm giving the president an A right now for his freshman year.
John, is Biden perhaps guilty of setting high expectations? And, I believe in setting high expectations. But, he said things like, I'm going to build bridges. I'm going to be a unifier. Well, of course, it takes two parties to unify. And all the other party has to do is not come together, and they've made him a liar, or they've made him ineffectual in certain ways. Is his efforts at bipartisanship, is his reaching across the aisle to the Republicans, is he following Obama down some of the same wrong paths, John?
He gave indications early on that he understood that Obama had, actually gone too low, shot too low rather than too high in his first year as president. And also that there'd been a kind of a lack of effective focus on dealing with the economic meltdown of 2007, 2008, and that came back to haunt Obama. So, the sense was that Biden and Schumer and the crew pretty much knew what they had to do. The problem, and in fairness to Biden, I don't think he shot too high. I don't think that was the problem at all. I think the problem was that they did not figure out how to build a governing coalition at the start. And, they've got this 50-50 split in the Senate, which is a lousy circumstance. They've got a slightly better situation in the House. But in the Senate, what they needed to do was, look at their circumstance. If there were things that had to be done to get Manchin and Sinema on board, those should have been, mission critical job one things that were done at the start, because you're going to have to live with them, right? So you figure that out. You got to give Manchin an extra bridge, or Sinema, like, I don't know, a free trip to Paris or whatever. Do it. And give them responsibility so that they become part of the coalition. Don't let them be out there as free agents. Bring them in as best you can. They didn't do a good job of that. And then the second thing is look at your opportunities to get another member. Maybe point Toomey to the ambassador to food and agriculture in Rome or something. Whatever Toomey wants, get him out of that Pennsylvania seat, and use the process in Pennsylvania. You got Democratic governor and a special election process to get another Democrat in there. That would have been, that's what I would have done, is to kind of expand out. And then I also would have spent an immense amount of time courting both Mitt Romney, who's shown some, vague interest, at least in democracy, and Lisa Murkowski, who, frankly, is on balance pretty close to a moderate Democrat. And I just don't think enough energy was put on that, because they've ended up in this situation where a couple of, jokers, were basically Manchin and Sinema, have played him, in the last 2 or 3 months at every turn, to immense harm to the president's image and, frankly, to the image of Democrats as a governing party.
Folks, you are listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show, never guilty of setting too high expectations. Some just call us the greatest radio show ever, because we have nothing but the greatest guests, like John Nichols from The Nation, our good friend. We appreciate you joining us, John. Well, let me talk about some of the major victories of the Biden first year. The American Rescue Plan, that was a massive victory for the American people. John, I think if anything, Biden and the Dems, they haven't done enough bragging about that. I mean, they backstopped the economy. They kept us from God knows what, and they moved on rapidly, and they barely even talked about it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Couple things that are really important here, and first and foremost, Trump was chaos, right? I mean, he ended up with a coup attempt in the midst of a raging, deadly pandemic outbreak. I mean, what a disaster! And so, getting rid of him was an incredibly healthy thing, and they should make that. They should be clear about that. Now we have an Omicron outbreak now, but it's not nearly as deadly as what you were looking at, a year ago, and we don't have a coup going on, and so there's a whole bunch of things that are better right off the bat. And Biden should talk about that all the time. So should the rest of his administration. I don't know what the Biden people are thinking. They don't do a good job of regularly reminding the American people of how bad things were under Trump and how much better they are in a lot of ways under Biden. They also, frankly, don't do the careful planning that they should to make sure that they don't fall into traps that allow the Republicans to essentially pick at them for things that aren't really their fault. And as an example of that, they should have been better prepared for Omicron. There's no doubt they should have been working on that supply chain, the testing and things like that a lot harder. It looks like at the end, Omicron's going to peak pretty soon and, fade out as something that wasn't as deadly or as destructive as some people feared. So they may dodge a bullet there, but they should be putting a lot more money and energy into preparation for future surges so that they're clearly on top of the pandemic in a better way. And as regards to democracy stuff, also they should have moved harder on that early on. But if we just take a basic look, what do we understand? Unemployment, it's kind of heading toward record lows. We have inflation, and that's something we have to be concerned about. But you can harness inflation, and they should, be trying to do so in ways that take the pressure off working class people and put the pressure hard on the rich. They should be taxing the rich a whole lot more and looking at every avenue to do that. And then finally, look, they need to free the members of the administration to go out and brag about things a lot more. We do not hear enough from cabinet members. We don't hear enough from Vice President Kamala Harris. Frankly, we don't hear enough from Biden himself. And too much of the narrative is dictated by news reports and by Republican spin rather than by an effective use of the bully pulpit by Biden. So at the end of the day, if Biden was bragging a little more and demanding accountability a little more from the Republicans, I think he'd be in better shape.
John Nichols, think back to the primaries when they began, and it was Bernie and it was Elizabeth Warren and Cory Booker, and there were so many progressive ideologies and they were being expressed, Medicare for all and all these great ideas. At least we thought they were great. And they didn't carry the day. They didn't win the primary. Joe Biden won the primary. But the trajectory, perhaps we're all guilty of projecting high liberal expectations on this presidency. He wasn't the socialist. That's the guy I voted for in the primaries. But here's the question, John. We've moved so far away from that even the accomplishments of this administration seem like such a watered down version of what could have been. Am I guilty of too high expectations?
No, you're not. I mean, look, I think you should talk less about expectations and more about necessity. And I don't think Democrats and progressives talk enough about necessity. There are certain things that need to happen, whether it's, a progressive agenda or whatever, however you refer to it, they just have to happen. It's very interesting. I know the Prime Minister of Iceland a little bit, and, we talk about why Iceland did so well in the pandemic. And, first thing she talks about is, we have a great, national healthcare system and public health. It's very, very simple reality. And the United States desperately needs a national healthcare system, single payer model. And that's not some left or right thing, progressive or centrist or whatever. It is simply what we need, and we should expect and seek that. It's embarrassing, frankly, that we don't have it. It's embarrassing, frankly, that we have a new administration that hasn't fought harder in that direction.
But John, we're moving farther and farther away from an expansion of Medicare. At least that's my opinion. We're not moving left. Last administration was trying to repeal and replace Obamacare. If we go back to the hard right, John, we'll be lucky if we retain what we have. So here's the question. I'll spit it out. Do I need to fear, and I got 1 minute to give you here for a response, do I need to fear that the Democrats are going to run to the center? They're going to triangulate like the Clintons did, or perhaps, can we embrace some of the policies of the left, even if they're only aspirational?
Okay, we going to talk in a second segment, or are you getting rid of me after this one?
No, we got more time, John. I'll be quick. A multi-part question. I might have to give you two segments.
No, I'll be quick on this, and then we'll come back and talk about it a little more. Should you fear? Yeah, you should be. It should be the thing that keeps you up at night, because the simple fact of the matter is that Democrats have done this again and again and again. Instead of countering Republican extremism with a bold, clear, and necessary agenda, they've gone soft, and they've tried to run to the center. They've tried to say, "Oh, well, we're a kinder, gentler version of the Republicans," or we're not as bad as they are.
John, we're never soft. Hard breaks are on here. We'll be right back with John Nichols from The Nation. More Devil's Advocates.
COVID-19 vaccines are starting to become available across the country. Now is the time to get informed. Get the latest information at getvaccineanswers.org. It's up to you. A message brought to you by the Ad Council and the CDC.
600,000 Wisconsin families are receiving checks to help take care of their kids thanks to the expanded child tax credit passed by Joe Biden and Congressional Democrats. Ron Johnson voted against these checks for Wisconsin families, despite voting for a 2017 tax break that put more money into the pockets of millionaires like himself. It's time to vote Ron Johnson out of office. MoveOn.org political action, paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertisement. Poll.moveon.org, not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
Treat yourself to some Wisco Home Goods natural lotions or sugar scrub in 2022. I'm Don, one of the owners of this family-owned Midwestern business in Madison, Wisconsin. Our natural hand soaps, lotions, and sugar scrubs offer you the luxury you deserve. Wisco Home Goods self-care products come in a variety of scents you're sure to love. So go on, add a little pampering to your daily routine. Order at wiscohomegoods.com. Natural, healthy, nourishing self-care and more at wiscohomegoods.com.
If you came across someone struggling with hunger, how would you recognize them?
By their clothes,
their age,
the way they speak. Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America, 200 Food Banks Strong, and the Ad Council.
Hi, folks. This is Kirk Bankstead of the Minocqua Brewing Company, and I'm excited to announce our new beer, AOC IPA. This IPA pays homage to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a champion of the progressive movement. AOC IPA is now available in stores throughout Wisconsin. Check our website, MinocquaBrewingCompany.com, to see which stores in your area are carrying it.
Be held responsible.
The Devil's Advocates, never personal, only politics.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show. John, he was just messing with you a little. I got a fine guest. He's sticking around. John Nichols. John, I hope you're not still talking, man. I had to cut you off going into break. You can talk as long as you want, up to 8 minutes, John.
Don't you feel better, though, like coming in with some of those power chords?
Yeah, it is.
It's better than that freshman thing.
It certainly is, John. I'll never play the verb pipe again when you appear on this show.
Nothing against the verb pipe, but come on. It's like you got to have a little bit of the fighting spirit here, man.
Well, as do the Democrats. And are they going to show fighting spirit? Are they going to triangulate to the right, John?
Yeah, they probably will. And if they do, I shouldn't say they probably will. There's a chance, there's a fear that they will. If they do, they'll lose. I think it's just you want to be very clear on this. This isn't a complicated calculus. They've done it in the past, and every time they've done it, they've lost, and usually pretty badly. This time, if they lose, they're going to set up a situation where Biden will be a lame duck for the last 2 years of his presidency, and B, you'll kind of open the space for a return of Trump. So it's disastrous if they get this wrong. And I would love to candy coat it or make it softer, make it easier to talk about, but that's unrealistic. There's nothing honest about a suggestion that Democrats can run to the center and make this thing work. If they run to the center, they'll suffer depressed turnout. No matter how much money they put into organizing and energy, there has to be some kind of message that draws people out. And that depressed turnout in states like Wisconsin will make it very, very hard for them to hold on to what they've got and to take Ron Johnson's Senate seat. On the other hand, if they nominate a progressive who's ready to fight as such and really ready to energize a multiracial, multi-ethnic coalition that, especially speaks to young people who, are folks that's a little bit harder to get to the polls. So you got to have a lot of messaging for them. If you do it right, again, we'll just use the example of Wisconsin because it's such a classic battleground state. They've got a very good chance of holding on to the governorship, not by a lot. It'll be a hard fight. There's no question of that. And of taking a Senate seat. If they take the Wisconsin Senate seat, there's a really good chance that, they can hold the Senate. If they lose it, their chances of holding the Senate go down exponentially. They've got the Pennsylvania race, which is somewhat hopeful, but this could turn out really badly. So it's on a knife edge. We should be honest about the politics of the moment, and the way to go at it is economic, social, racial justice, high energy, and not letting Trump and the Republicans off the hook at any turn. And I would make COVID a very, very big issue in this regard. Look, I'd be very, very clear that we had a horrible response to COVID in 2020 under Donald Trump and the Republicans. It's been dramatically better in this last year. Not perfect, not everything it should be, but it's dramatically better. And because COVID's a lingering reality, I think Republicans should really ask that, or Democrats should ask that fundamental question. Do you want to hand the keys to the kingdom over to the people that let you and your family members get sick and die in 2020? I hope I'm not being too blunt.
A lot of people that are just fine with that, John. We see a diminishment in the number of people that declare they're Democrats. We also see a diminishment in the number of people that call themselves Republicans, but less of a diminishment. John, I'm worried about the midterms. Joe Biden, he ain't on the ballot this year. Obviously, the White House, the policies of the current president, always on the ballot. But I'm more worried about what happens in the state of Wisconsin if something like a red wave comes through and Tony Evers loses the governorship. I mean, he is the goalie here in the state of Wisconsin, John. He doesn't have an agenda so much as playing defense. And without the goalie, man, we're Scrooged, aren't we, John?
Yeah, of course. His agenda comes down to one word: no. And it's been very, very effective on a lot of turns. It hasn't been everything it should be, but and I wish he would use the bully pulpit a little more effectively. But the fact of the matter is that those vetoes have been absolutely critical. If you lose that ability to block the Republicans from doing what they want to do, you end up in an incredibly ugly situation. There's just simply no question of that. And so what's at stake is huge. But history tells us that you don't win by warning people that, the other guys are bad players, or something like that. You've got to have some sort of vision for why you seek power. And you've got to hold out the promise that if you get power, something good is going to come of it. That's why, for Evers' reelection, it has to be linked very closely to the Senate race, because, what you want to do is, deliver the message that winning the Senate race probably gives Democrats the power at the federal level to continue, maybe even more power if they win the Wisconsin seat and the Pennsylvania seat, to have an actual working majority, gives them the power to deliver for working class people, for people who are, having some hard times here in Wisconsin and across the country. And so you get the people out, particularly with a very positive, very forward-looking message as regards the Senate race. that's going to, bleed over into the governor's race and hopefully give you the votes that you need to hold on to the governorship and the down ballot races for attorney general and other posts as well. So there's a strategy for this. This isn't complicated stuff. It's the kind of thing you ought to be able to work out on the back of an envelope. But I can tell you that if they don't work it out on the back of an envelope, if they don't have the clarity on this thing, then all of their talk about data and all of their talk about, mobilization, it's just not going to be sufficient. There's got to be an agenda, and it's got to be a bold agenda, most likely run through the Senate race with a lot of accountability talk that makes it clear to people that, the Republicans who were in there did a lot of damage. I always remind people that Franklin Roosevelt was president for, the better part of a dozen years. And even at the end of his presidency in late 1944, early 1945, he was still talking about what a bad guy Herbert Hoover was. You know what I mean? He never let people forget the damage that the Republicans did. And Democrats are going to have to do that. So they got to have this combination of bold, progressive vision with a lot of accountability talk.
And how do we put Trump on the ballot, John? Like 1 minute left. How do we keep the focus on the last guy?
No, it's very simple. If Rebecca Clayfish is the Republican nominee for governor of Wisconsin, you make it very clear that she would have overturned the results of the 2020 election and handed the state to the guy who lost. That puts him on the ballot because the truth of the matter is that both Rebecca Clayfish and Ron Johnson are more loyal to Donald Trump than they are to the people of Wisconsin. And they've made that absolutely unequivocally clear. So you can put Trump on the ballot. It's not a hard thing to do. But again, you don't just do that. You also have a vision for what you do when you get power. And so there has to be a message about, yes, Trump, bad guy, did a lot of damage. Democrats, give him enough power to undo the damage Trump did.
I want some power, John. John Nichols from The Nation. Friend of mine, man. I'd settle for any sort of power, John, at this point. The veto pen, that would be enough. John Nichols.
Turn speakers up to 11.
Turn it up. Alice Cooper's on.
Crank the volume, man. Crank the volume.
Thanks, John. More Devils. Hour 2 is next.
Let's go, Brandon.
Wisconsin. You know that Drew Holiday and Brooke Lopez are champions on the court, but did you know they're also champions for our community?
Hey, Wisconsinites. Drew Holiday here.
And Brooke Lopez here.
I love being a champion.
And today I'm asking you to be a champion citizen.
Defend your right to vote and exercise your freedom to vote.
It's more important now than ever because politicians are trying to restrict our freedom to vote.
They're worried about our power, so they want to take it away.
Don't let them do that.
You've got to block that shot.
Paid for by the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign.
Local celebrities for 1,000, Rob.
This Mama Award-winning radio personality and local celebrity can be heard Saturday nights on Max Inc. Radio.
That's easy, Rob. Who is Rocker?
Ooh, sorry, Rocker, no.
It's me, Rob. Who is Terry Barr? I'll be co-hosting Max Inc. Radio with Rocker, and we'll be interviewing local artists and previewing where they're going to be playing around town.
Catch Terry Barr and Rocker along with the Max Inc. Radio crew. Listen to local music, interviews, and catch live performances in the Devil's Lair.
You are listening to WTTN 1580 AM Columbus, W224 EG Madison, always streaming on the Devil Radio app.
AP News, I'm Ben Thomas. The Senate has a voting rights bill before it that represents the cornerstone of the Democratic agenda and a top priority for civil rights leaders. But AP Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani says prospects for passage are slim.
Democrats simply don't have the votes to advance voting rights legislation amid unanimous GOP opposition in the evenly split Senate. It would be a devastating defeat enabled by two Democrats who refuse to back rules changes that would overcome a Republican filibuster.
Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell on the filibuster rules.
This is about one party wanting the power to unilaterally rewrite the rule book of American elections.
Still, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says,
long odds are no excuse for this chamber to avoid this important issue.
Amid fears a Russian military buildup could be a prelude to an invasion, Secretary of State Antony Blinken will visit Ukraine this week, meeting with its president in a show of support. Blinken will then go on to meet his Russian counterpart in Geneva. Meantime, AP correspondent Charles De Ledesma reports the president of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, says his country and Russia are planning joint military drills.
Lukashenko says the maneuvers will be conducted on Belarus's western border and also in the country's south, where it borders Ukraine. Ukrainian officials have warned that Russia could launch an attack from various directions, including from the territory of Belarus. Russia has denied having plans to attack its neighbor and in turn has accused the Ukrainian leadership of hatching plans to use force to reclaim control of Russian-backed rebel-held territories.
Stocks fell to a new low for the year on Wall Street today. The S&P 500 fell 1.8%, the Dow lost 1.5%, and the Nasdaq 2.6%. This is AP News.
We're planning a trip to Spain later this year.
But our Spanish
is pretty bad.
When you learn a language, you want to actually use it. Babbel is designed with that goal in mind. Babbel's conversation-based method teaches you real-life words and phrases. And with Babbel's interactive bite-sized lessons, you'll remember what you learned.
¿Cómo te llamas?
¿Cómo te llamas?
¿De dónde eres?
¿De dónde eres?
No matter your learning style or experience level, Babbel has lessons designed for you that will get you speaking quickly and confidently.
I tried learning Spanish before, but I couldn't stick with it until I found Babbel.
There's no easier way to learn another language.
Ahora hablamos español.
He just said, now we speak Spanish.
I can't wait to use our new language skills on our upcoming adventures.
Babbel, language for life, celebrating 10 million subscriptions sold. Now try Babbel for free at Babbel.com. Just go to Babbel.com and start learning a new language today. That's Babbel.com, Babbel.com.
A progressive voice in rural Wisconsin, WTTN 1580 AM is South Central Wisconsin's home for Devil Radio.
Wisconsin, you know that Drew Holiday and Brooke Lopez are champions on the court, but did you know they're also champions for our community?
Hey, Wisconsinites. Drew Holiday here.
And Brooke Lopez here.
I love being a champion.
And today I'm asking you to be a champion citizen.
Defend your right to vote and exercise your freedom to vote.
It's more important now than ever because politicians are trying to restrict our freedom to vote.
They're worried about our power, so they want to take it away.
Don't let them do that.
You've got to block that shot.
Paid for by the Wisconsin Democracy Campaign.
600,000 Wisconsin families are receiving checks to help take care of their kids, thanks to the expanded child tax credit passed by Joe Biden and Congressional Democrats. Ron Johnson voted against these checks for Wisconsin families, despite voting for a 2017 tax break that put more money into the pockets of millionaires like himself. It's time to vote Ron Johnson out of office. MoveOn.org political action, paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertisement. Poll.moveon.org, not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
Over the past 30 years, Chad's Design Build has grown and improved how we do things, but we've never lost sight of our commitment to be a great place to work, focused on quality renovations for outstanding clients. Paying a living wage and providing excellent benefits to promote work-life balance does in fact attract outstanding people, which helps to explain our stellar reputation. Thank you, Madison, for 30 amazing years, building a better world one remodeled home at a time. This is Chad Spate for Chad's Design Build.
Like, wow, Scoob, it's Devil Radio. Rebel Radio?
For Devil Radio, 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM. I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines. A conservative law firm, Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, and Dane County have until February 1st to submit any modifications to a lawsuit that is questioning the precedence of the, quote, non-delegation doctrine, a concept that provides elected legislative bodies to defer power to an executive authority. The conservative firm argues the Dane County Board cannot delegate powers to the County Health Board for an undisclosed period of time, as it has with occupancy guidelines and mask mandates amid the COVID-19 pandemic. Public Health Madison and Dane County contends its public health orders will be upheld by the Wisconsin Supreme Court. Cloudy skies in the forecast today with winds up to 20 miles an hour and a high today of 37 degrees. Mostly cloudy skies to continue into the evening with skies clearing shortly after midnight and an overnight low of 9 degrees. You're listening to Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM.
Devil Radio programming is produced live in the Solidarity Realty Studios. Find them at solidarityrealty.com. Solidarity Realty. There is an alternative.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves and corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening. 3, 2, 1. Now live from the Devil Radio Studios in Madison, Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning. Welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Here is your host, Mike Crute.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Want to thank my most recent guest, the fine co-devil, John Nichols from The Nation. Thank you, John. And your opinions, they always matter here. This hour is for you, the callers, 844-967-2789. I've been asking a lot, and I'm not quite panic mode, let's just say, but I'm getting very troubled about the polling and about the engagement levels, especially on the right. And the fact that I feel like, and the polling would seem to suggest, that the right's ready to roll into the midterms. Could be a red wave. That's what they keep telling us. And we keep saying, well, you know, a year is like a lifetime in politics. It's less than a year now. We're getting to the point where it's getting on like 10 months to the midterm elections. And it's going to go really quick. Each and every day around here, they all go quick. It should be Thursday already. I think we mentioned that.
I thought it was Thursday. Thanks.
It's only Tuesday, still Tuesday.
Breaking my heart every day.
Life moves pretty fast, is all I'm saying. And, you know, as you watch the political cycles, we all get caught in the political ruts, and we think this is the only trajectory we could possibly be on. Well, you know, the U.S. Supreme Court could overturn Roe v. Wade. That might be a game changer. You know, not that I'm rooting for the bad, but electorally speaking, that could be quite an inspiration to, let's say, the dim supportive. But I've taken some issue to the fact that we as a nation don't really hold Republicans accountable for January 6th. And it's not just been since January 6th. I mean, this is the issue of our lifetimes. This is how we help, or at least I try to do my little part to help preserve small d democracy. It was a coup d'etat. That's my opinion, because I've seen lots of public reporting that it was a coup d'etat. But the American people, they're thinking to themselves, wasn't that big a deal. Tragic, you know, kind of like a weather emergency, but not, you know, anyone's to blame exactly for January 6th. And why would they think that way? And I've got an opinion piece. I'm sharing some of Amanda Marcotte's thoughts at thesalon.com. I'll share a little bit of her piece as well. Well, if it was a really big deal, I mean, coup d'etats, you hear these words, they're a big deal, right? And if they were actually doing a coup, well, there'd be some Republicans sitting in prison right now. And the fact that they're not makes it awfully hard to convince the American people that something really bad happened on January 6th. I want to jump into the body of this piece. The implicit and sometimes explicit support for the insurrection by Republicans is obvious to the politically aware. Not only does the Republican Party continue to cover up Donald Trump's role in inciting the riot, but the party nationwide is acting on Trump's demands to help him steal the 2024 election through voter suppression and election interference. Meanwhile, prominent Republican figures continue to promote political violence. While Trump is the strong favorite for the GOP nomination in 24, with an overtly insurrectionist campaign built around his big lie. So that's what's coming down the pike. More Trump. More Trump. The problem, according to the author, is that voters who are swinging hard to the GOP, and I don't know if you've seen the new polling, but it's been a 14-point swing, a diminishment in support for the Democratic Party and an increase in support for the Republican Party. And the cumulative swing's been 14 points this year, the first year of Biden's presidency. That's troubling because that could portend a red wave. So anyways, back to the article. The problem is that voters who are swinging hard to the GOP know basically none of this. Instead, they assume that Republicans are a normal political party. There's lots of people to blame for this, of course. Biden and the Democrats didn't do themselves any favors by spending the past year talking up unity and bipartisanship instead of focusing like a laser on the fact that the GOP is actively conspiring with Trump to cover up for January 6th and perpetuate his war on democracy. The media also plays a role, not this fine media, exhibiting an unwillingness to challenge Republicans directly about their anti-democratic ideology. But ultimately, the biggest problem is the utter lack of accountability for any of the prominent Republicans involved in January 6th. Neither Trump nor any Republican leader has been arrested for their efforts to steal the election that led up to the Capitol riot. So far, the only people who have been arrested for the Capitol insurrection have been the people who actually stormed the building or far-right militia types who coordinated their actions that day. So that ends up reinforcing the impression, especially with people who don't follow the news very closely, and she's clearly not talking to you fine people, that the riot was a result of a bunch of self-directed fringe characters and has nothing to do with the mainstream Republican Party. Unless the cuffs start coming out for Trump and his fellow elite Republicans, it will be hard to convince these voters to see the insurrection as anything but an anomalous event instead of part of a larger anti-democratic effort. And they focus group this. Focus group data confirms this, as McClatchy reporter Alex Rotary explained last week in a tweet thread. Swing voters simply don't see January 6th as a big deal, and they talk about it as a tragedy, as if it was a weather event, instead of what it was, a partisan political effort to overthrow an election. Participants in the focus groups repeatedly talked about the Capitol riots as if Democrats were exaggerating when they talk about the day or its implications. In one focus group, however, one participant linked the attack to the larger assault on democracy and crucially expressed concern that the people behind the attack weren't facing justice. After that, the tone of the group switched to genuine concern for democracy. Participants, Rotary explained, then expressed, and here's his quote, a desire to find the person responsible for the attack. Without that, however, connecting the attack to the GOP didn't make any sense to them. This comports with findings from other focus groups. One conducted by Axios found that swing voters think the jury is still out on who is to blame for the Capitol insurrection, though they repeatedly expressed interest in finding out through legal investigation. Another, held by the New York Times, found that even though Democratic voters took the Capitol insurrection seriously, they expressed frustration that those responsible for the events of January 6th had not been brought to justice. Yeah, check me in that category. Even some Republicans called the event scary. But again, as the only people being arrested for it are the small timers, they can tell themselves a story about how it has nothing to do with the mainstream GQP. My insertion of the Q there, see what I did? The logic of the typical low information voter isn't all that hard to parse. If Trump and other Republicans had actually tried to commit a coup, then why aren't they in jail for it? It's a serious crime after all. The lack of arrest sends a strong signal that it must not be that important. Most people tend to consume a lot more Law and Order than they do investigative pieces by the Washington Post. They likely won't read the umpteenth investigative piece on this complex coup. They would, however, notice Trump and GOP members of Congress getting arrested. Oh, please let me notice that. And last week, there were some high-profile charges of Stuart Rhodes and other members of the Oath Keepers for seditious conspiracy for their part in the January 6th riot. As some commentators pointed out, that undermines efforts from Republican pundits to deny that the attack was an insurrection. However, it does little to dissuade swing voters from viewing the events of that day as driven by an otherwise powerless right-wing fringe. Rhodes has a past as a congressional staffer and a judicial clerk, but he deliberately dresses like a wild-eyed militiaman, helping reinforce the false narrative that he and his fellows have no real relationship to the mainstream Republican politics. Democrats can make speeches blaming Trump and other Republicans for the insurrection, but they can't make skeptical swing voters believe them. On the contrary, such voters tend to be the first to ascribe cynical and self-serving motives to political speech and see such sentiments as empty rhetoric if they aren't backed up by action. Pardon me. In political media, there tends to be a lot of hand-wringing concern about how charging GOP leadership that was involved in the coup with crimes could be read as political. For ordinary voters who pay little attention to politics, the opposite is true. The lack of charges reads as evidence that there's nothing to charge Trump and his coup conspirators with. They see political rhetoric blaming Republicans as therefore partisan hyperbole. Now, there's a lot more to this piece, but this is my concern, the lack of justice, especially in regards to the January 6th. We keep bringing it up. We keep trying to connect the dots for you, not because you're not smart people, but you're busy people. You got lives to lead. I have no life. This is what I do. I share my aimless life of reading Washington Post articles with you right here on the radio. And when we come back on the other side, you know, my otherwise worthless life will be made complete because we're going to take some of your phone calls at 844-967-2789. I want to see charges. I want to declare it Merrick Garland Day all across the station. I will celebrate that day. Fancy Brian, we will do a jig. I will do a dance. I will streak the quad if necessary.
The only thing I've heard about Merrick Garland that gives me a little bit of hope is that in his past, when he's prosecuted people, it's never leaked at all whatsoever. So maybe it's just really a tight ship, huh? Huh?
Oh, yeah, it's a tight ship.
Huh?
Come back with us. We run a tight ship around here. Your phone calls could be next. 844-96. Call it a party.
Well, history is written by the winner, so it largely depends on who's writing the history.
The mood of the crowd was positive and festive.
You believe that story? You believe that?
Don't ask me to get inside the mind of a liberal, progressive, socialist, Marxist.
Communism is just a red herring.
To protect his family from disaster, Steve used his camera phone.
Done.
By taking pictures of his important documents, Steve can always have them stored online. Learn more simple disaster prep tips at ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
600,000 Wisconsin families are receiving checks to help take care of their kids thanks to the expanded child tax credit passed by Joe Biden and Congressional Democrats. Ron Johnson voted against these checks for Wisconsin families, despite voting for a 2017 tax break that put more money into the pockets of millionaires like himself. It's time to vote Ron Johnson out of office. MoveOn.org political action, paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertising. Poll.moveon.org, not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
President Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election.
Collectively, Republicans got 1.661 million votes, 51,000 more votes than Trump got.
He exhausted his cases. He exhausted the court challenges.
All the Republicans voted for Trump the way they voted for the assembly candidates. He would have won.
It was not rigged. It was not stolen. Donald Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election. It's really clear.
This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at p4ppc.org.
Look through your children's eyes, and you will discover the true magic of a forest.
Find a forest near you and start exploring at discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Spruce up your home with soy candles from Wisco Home Goods. I'm Don, one of the owners of this family-owned Midwestern business in Madison, Wisconsin. Our candles are 100% sustainable and come in a variety of unique blends and scents. Did you know our candle jars are also double old-fashioned glasses? That's right, buy a candle and you get a free cocktail glass. Check out our blog at wiscohomegoods.com/blog for more information. That's wiscohomegoods.com/blog.
When they go low, we get high. The Devil's Advocates.
Welcome back to the Tuesday edition. Feels like a Thursday. Should be. Devil's Advocates radio show. You can be a part. 844-967-2789. Go into the phones momentarily. I had one headline. This one sort of topically goes along. Preet Bharara, a former U.S. attorney, explains how we'll know when the walls are closing in on the Trumps. I'm only going to read a paragraph or two here. He did a podcast, The New Normal, and here is what the former U.S. attorney had to say. According to the former Justice Department official, the committee has gathered a tremendous amount of information and testimony, but to all appearances have yet to approach the former president or members of his family. What are you waiting for? He writes, or said on the podcast that's been transcribed, it's odd to have allowed all this testimony to have been collected, all those documents to be subpoenaed and compiled, and they don't look like they've done any of these interviews, meaning the Trumps. And maybe there's some reason that I'm not aware of that I can't think of, he told the host before adding, I don't know why that hasn't happened. Yeah, interviewed the Trumps. He did note that Trump and those close to him have a distinct habit they fall back on when the pressure gets to them. Here's how you'll know when the walls are closing in, like but then the Death Star, they were in the trash compactor and the walls were literally closing in.
Yeah, they shut down all the garbage matches and the tension level.
Here is what Preet Bharara, former U.S. attorney, has to say. When you go and you approach people, you want to interview about what you might expect them to have done. People who are very mouthy, like the Trump folks, they get up in arms, they send letters, they try to quash, they get very upset, and they blab about it. Yes, they do. So you remember, apparently, and James Santel, our own fine guest and former U.S. attorney, brought this to my attention when Trump started railing about what was happening in Fulton County in Georgia. That was probably a direct result to a charging letter, a letter saying these are charges we are exploring against you, former President Trump. And that's probably the sort of letter he reacted to. So, when he's losing his mind on national television, I'm not sure if anyone would cover it, though. Trump did a rally in Arizona last week.
I heard about that only from crazy conservatives online.
Nobody cared. The most important and newsworthy thing about the Trump rally in Arizona is all the Arizonans that lined up to be anointed, all the crazy, all the fringers. Only that's the main line. That is the party of the GQP. And they're all complicit, or at least many of them. Paul Gosar from Arizona specifically, allegedly, is probably a criminal in his own regard in regards to the January 6th. So when did the perp walk start? We got to find caller, a very polite young man, Jack from Caledonia. Jack, I understand you called the earlier show today. How very polite of you to ask if you could call again. Yes, you may in this rare and unique circumstance, Jake. Jack, my bad.
Well, no, that article had a lot, a long article had a lot to go in. They talk about, Trump inciting, the FBI gave their report and they said there was no evidence that Trump was, that Trump incited the riots.
Who said that? I've not seen. Sir, there's no FBI report that says that Trump didn't incite anything.
Trump did not. Right. Yeah, that's been out there. Yeah.
No, it's not, sir.
3 months ago.
Okay, I'll Google it. It's worth a Google, but you continue, Jack.
I'll look for it. Okay. And then I was at home watching the day, and when I saw, when I saw the speaker get taken off the podium, I went, oh, there's something going on here, And, sure enough, everything started, people started leaving the chambers and getting into their offices and things. The first thing I thought, was the security. They had 85 Capitol Police on duty, okay? And there wasn't any other, there wasn't any other crowd control there, all right? And it just didn't make any sense to me with all that had been going on during the summer, during the, large riots and things, why, because there was a full Senate and a full House, that Nancy Pelosi didn't have more security at the Capitol. She's the one responsible for security at the Capitol.
Who told you that? I mean,
that's the Speaker's job.
The Speaker's job. Really? I thought she was supposed to move legislation.
No, the Speaker of the House is responsible for security at the House. Okay?
You know,
yeah.
Jack, I appreciate you calling, and you're obviously a polite guy. You asked permission to rejoin on the air twice during the same thing, but I question the veracity of the statements you're making here, Jack. I've looked a few of them up, and your memory or understanding of the news is not an accurate memory of the news. You would have to cite sources, which you cannot do, because as you've been talking, I've been Googling, sir. It's not true. Nancy Pelosi was not personally responsible for any sort of security at the Capitol. Nancy Pelosi is a figurehead in the best circumstance in regards to any sort of security. The Sergeant at Arms might have some impact. Hell, the DC National Guard could have had some impact that day. But Nancy Pelosi is not going to stand out there on the barricades and keep the rioters out. And I know that this is what Ron Johnson's newest attack on the Speaker. What did Nancy Pelosi know? I'm suspicious, right? That's what Ron said. Jack, I'm suspicious of your source if it's Ron Johnson, because Ron Johnson makes stuff up. Fancy.
I just want to clarify. AP News released an entire article on January 14th. FBI did not issue statement clearing Donald Trump for Capitol insurrection. It was a misunderstanding of a statement that said, I don't think he will be referred for criminal prosecution, but you should follow the prosecution. That's it. Did not clear. Well,
the ex-FBI director actually said because of the impeachment, he probably shouldn't be prosecuted separately, but that's one guy's opinion. I got plenty of opinions, Jack. Opinions are like, you know what? Everybody's got them, and they all stink. Except mine. Mine are rosy. Come back with us. More of your opinions here. 844-967-2789.
It's a it's a
Wrong!
In time, you will know the true power of Devil Radio 92.7. It is your destiny.
Hey, Jimmy, it's Rocker. Meet me at the new Dark Horse Art Bar in East Wash. Happy hour is Tuesday through Saturday, 4 to 6 p.m. You pick the day. 2-for-1 rail drinks and slices of Sal's tomato pies for $1. Jimmy, it's happy hour at the Dark Horse Art Bar, 756 East Washington in Madison, across from the Sylvie.
Madison's newest happy hour, craft cocktail, local art and music. Find out more at the new Dark Horse Art Bar and Gallery, online at darkhorsemadison.com.
Darcy Haber, I hear you have solar panels on your office building. Since when are real estate brokers so concerned about the environment?
Drew, you should know that at Solidarity Realty, we provide outstanding real estate service while adhering to our core progressive values. Environmental sustainability is a big part of that.
So you really walk your talk, huh?
Yeah, I even walk to work.
Come on, always.
Well, sometimes I bike, and if I have an appointment across town, I use my solar panels to charge my plug-in.
Solidarity Realty. They're real, they're solid, and they're honest. Check them out at Solidarity Realty.
Voting rights. I'm Tim McGuire with an AP News Minute. The Senate debate over a voting rights bill is underway. Washington State Democrat Senator Maria Cantwell says mail-in voting has been around for decades and it works.
The fact that people are telling lies and trying to suppress the vote by suppressing vote by mail or calling it fraudulent is very frustrating. It's very frustrating, and it's one of the reasons we should come together in a bipartisan way and support vote by mail.
The bill is likely to fail since President Biden and fellow Democrats need 60 votes to break the Republican filibuster. The effort to bypass the filibuster has been stymied by 2 Democratic senators, West Virginia's Joe Manchin and Senator Kyrsten Sinema of Arizona. University of Alabama football coach Nick Saban and NBA legend Jerry West are among a group of prominent West Virginians writing Manchin, asking him to support the effort to pass the bill. I'm Tim McGuire.
We're planning a trip to Spain later this year.
But our Spanish
is pretty bad.
When you learn a language, you want to actually use it. Babbel is designed with that goal in mind. Babbel's conversation-based method teaches you real-life words and phrases. And with Babbel's interactive, bite-sized lessons, you'll remember what you learned.
¿Cómo te llamas?
¿Cómo te llamas?
¿De dónde eres?
¿De dónde eres? No matter your learning style or experience level, Babbel has lessons designed for you that will get you speaking quickly and confidently.
I tried learning Spanish before, but I couldn't stick with it until I found Babbel.
There's no easier way to learn another language.
Ahora hablamos español.
He just said, now we speak Spanish.
I can't wait to use our new language skills on our upcoming adventures.
Babbel, language for life, celebrating 10 million subscriptions sold. Now try Babbel for free at Babbel.com. Just go to Babbel.com and start learning a new language today. That's Babbel.com, Babbel.com.
For Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM. I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines. Last week, Friday, the search committee responsible for naming the next University of Wisconsin system president announced 2 finalists for the position: James Schmidt, the current chancellor at UW-Eau Claire, and Jay Rothman, the chairman of the law firm Foley & Laudner based out of Milwaukee. The 2 finalists will be interviewed by a number of groups today, and the committee will send a final recommendation to the Board of Regents. A decision is expected by the end of the month. The Madison City Council will vote this evening on a proposal that would redevelop portions of Hilldale Mall to bring a number of new retail spaces, a hotel, and an outdoor plaza to the shopping center after the city's Plan Commission approved the proposal last week. The federal government announced this week the Department of Transportation will begin dispersing more than $5 billion in federal funds for bridge repairs across the country from the bipartisan infrastructure bill signed by President Biden at the end of last year. You're listening to Devil Radio.
Think you know politics? Think again. Welcome to the Devil's Advocates.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show, the 4 o'clock happy hour. It rolls on. And I don't want to waste all the limited minutes of this greatest radio show ever, refuting the false allegations of Jack from Caledonia. But I did read a couple of fact checks over the course of the commercial break, including one. I've got it right up on the screen here from the USA Today. The claim that Pelosi was in charge of the U.S. Capitol Police during the insurrection has circulated both online and offline for months. On January 21st, U.S. Rep. Jim Jordan, that fine guy, Jim Jordan from Ohio, floated the claim after Pelosi rejected his appointment to the January 6th special committee. No sour grapes there, Jack. Why wasn't there a proper security presence at the Capitol that day? Jordan asked at a news conference. Only one person can answer that question. Only one, the Speaker of the United States House of Representatives. But as the USA Today quickly points out, but a look at the Capitol Police's chain of command shows Pelosi wasn't in charge of the law enforcement agency on January 6th, and the USA Today previously rated a similar claim false, and other independent fact-check organizations have reached similar conclusions. Jack, it's worth the Google, man. We can have these arguments. I mean, we can disagree on opinion stuff, but these are easily disprovable. You gotta bring facts to the table. You got to cite sources, and Jim Jordan or Ron Johnson are not credible sources when it's easily disproven with the Google, man. You got to do a little bit of work too here. That's only fair, Jack.
You know what? And I'm throwing it out there. You may not want to trust the word of a guy who's known for looking the other way where he should be looking. Just throwing it out there.
Talking about Jim Jordan in the showers?
Yeah.
At Ohio State?
Yeah, looking the other way. He's good at that.
A little scandal there in his past.
Hey, there's something bad over here. Look over there.
Never heard of it. Jack never did. It's worth a Google, though, Jack. Go Google Jim Jordan, Ohio State showers. Just saying. 844-967-2789. Jeannie from Eau Claire, she's a favorite. Jeannie, welcome back. What do you got for us?
Well, hello, guys. Thank you for letting me give my 2 cents worth. I can't wait till they get done investigating, the similarities in all of the forged documentation, of the fake people that brought their votes to
the U.S. government, because forgery of public records for the purpose of defrauding the U.S. government is a federal criminal act. And I am looking so forward that day where I'm going to claim a holiday myself and have popcorn and everything to enjoy the big show. And they're going to have Wisconsin right in the front page and on the front stage for all the crap that they have pulled. The illegal activities, defrauding the taxpayer of their money for illegal investigation. Where does Boss get his money from, and not keep records? It's going to be a big show. And I hope all those people who are watching Fox News get a wide opening experience, because they're following the wrong guys there. And it's really too bad, because the Republican Party used to be a heck of a lot better than this. That's my 2 cents plus 50 and maybe 100. You guys have a good day.
Thank you, Judy. Good contribution. 844-967-2789. Dick, your contribution is now. What do you got for us?
Gotta love Jeannie. Didn't she something?
I do love
breaking news.
What's the breaking news?
I do too. Rudy Giuliani, Jenna Ellis, and Sidney Powell have been asked. Their subpoenas going out for them. It made me forget what I wanted to talk about.
Your phone's blowing up like my phone's blowing up. The January 6th committee apparently has issued subpoenas for Rudy Giuliani and others from the legal team, as they're being described.
Yep. And here's another real quick
Sidney
one.
Powell, that's the Kraken woman, right?
Yep. I was going to talk about something as boring as inflation and gas prices and how stupid it is to blame Biden for that, because that's been going on since 1973, the first oil embargo.
You know what, though, Dick? I appreciate the thought, because guys like you and I, we try to get to the facts and we'll dig into our history. You go first.
Then the next one is Lou Saban, and Jerry West are now on board, going after Manchin, telling him to get on board with voting rights. I think this is a cool thing. I made this off-the-cuff remark about the last good thing to come out of West Virginia was Jerry West, and that was a long time ago.
He's the guy that literally his silhouette is the logo for the NBA franchise.
That's right. And him, apparently, that's another breaking news thing. Him and Saban, who apparently was born and raised in that state, are telling these people to get on board.
Well, Dick, what's Jerry West going to do? A flagrant 2 foul on Joe Manchin? How's he going to persuade him?
You know what? I know that, but it's a good thing. Anything you can do. But as far as earlier, too, real quick, when John Nichols mentioned that, maybe Biden should buy a trip to Paris for cinema.
Yeah.
To try and get her on board. I'm thinking, and then he mentioned that the gal, Lisa Murkowski, is basically a moderate Democrat. I'd stick with the moderate Democrat, John, as opposed to the conservative Republican.
Give Murkowski a trip to Paris?
Well, she's a lot more of a Democrat from what I'm seeing. Maybe get her reelected and have her switch parties, because Sinema, you're going nowhere with her.
Well, Dick, I appreciate that sentiment. To make cinema irrelevant, and maybe even Joe Manchin, you know what we need? 2 more Dems in the Senate. It could start right here in the great state of Wisconsin. We got a very vulnerable Republican. This is one of the only states where a Republican is running in a state that Joe Biden won the last election. And I realize the tea leaves, they've changed. The political winds are blowing red, perhaps. But if you beat Rojo, if you win that seat here in the state of Wisconsin, you only have to pick up 1 more seat. And even, if it was just Manchin or Sinema out there on an island, if it was just one of them, they might not have the ability to sort of backstop each other. At some point, one of them would crack. Jerry West would give him a hard elbow in the solar plexus, and Manchin go down in a heap. It could be a player control foul, something like that.
Or, just throw Bill Lambier in there. Just let him take care of everything.
The bad boys from the Motor City.
I might be able to get a hold of him. His son went to school with my brother.
Dennis Rodman could save our nation.
He tried, apparently. He at least tried with North
Kim
Korea.
Jong-un.
I mean, he had an in, he went for it. I don't know if it worked out, but at least the guy tried.
844-967-2789. We appreciate when you try and call us and join the big party. Connor, Billy from the North Side, welcome.
Hey, this is Daughter Billy, and my thought, what I want to ask about is, I wish I'd had a chance when your guest was on, but my thinking is that if you're going to be lukewarm about Joe Biden, you got to be able to make an argument that the alternative, Bernie, and I like Bernie, would have accomplished more. And I'm not saying that he wouldn't have, but my first impression is I can't imagine that he would have, because of course he would have had a different kind of opposition. So I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that. Would Bernie have done significantly better than Joe?
That's a great hypothetical, Connor, Billy. I would like to think that the governance style would have been somewhat different. I don't think that my boy Bernie suffers from a lack of rhetorical courage. And we've seen Bernie out there quite a bit trying to pressure Sinema and Manchin, especially on the voting rights stuff. I don't think Bernie would have let that one get stale on the back burner for a year. I think Bernie would have probably been a lot closer to leading. And I think that Bernie does have an influential position in the Biden administration in that he, I guess he's not part of the Biden administration, but when you head up the Senate Budgetary Committee, you got a lot of influence over where the money is getting spent. I think ultimately Bernie might have had different priorities. He might have led things differently. I don't think he would have been so eager to be bipartisan with the party that called him a Marxist. But at the end of the day, Bernie has demonstrated he is willing to compromise. And it's not the left that's wrecked the legislative agenda of Joe Biden. My fear is that Biden is going to do a Clinton at the midterms, going to see the numbers, going to see a lot of red seats going, and he's going to turn into half of Bill Clinton. He's going to tack to the right. And I would prefer to see we the left, we the Dems, we the Democratic Socialists, if you will. I'd rather see us stake out a position to the left. And I know there are a lot of pundits that say, well, that's wrong. But I agree with John Nichols, Connor, Billy. I agree with John that if we tack to the right, we're just going to disillusion our base. The Dems never really feel like we've got to inspire our own. We just think ours are going to show up no matter what. That's not going to happen unless we give them a reason. What's your thoughts, sir?
Yeah, I
don't know if I answered your question. It's a good hypothetical. I don't know if it's answerable, but maybe you would have done better.
Well, I think we do ourselves a service if we're enthusiastic about Joe Biden and what he's accomplished. And you know what? If he does drift to the right and run to the center, then I'm ready to criticize that. But he hasn't. I don't think he's done that yet. And again, his headwinds have been different than Bernie's would have been. I just don't imagine Bernie would have gotten more done. I might have liked what Bernie had to say out there a little bit more, but I don't know that he would have gotten more done. So I'm pretty enthusiastic about Joe still.
Well, good, Connor. I think it's important that we do care. And I fear that a lot of the Democrats defaulted to Joe Biden. I mean, there were so many candidates in the primary, and I like Bernie. I like Bernie because he had paid his dues in the 2016 primary. I thought as a progressive champion, he was best positioned. However, if I could have plucked and picked a president, it probably would have been Elizabeth Warren. That woman had a plan for everything. But at the end of the day, the Democratic Party picked an empathetic guy, a guy who had a history in the U.S. Senate, a guy who was very familiar. He had been Obama's vice president. And my fear is part of what inspired Democrats to vote for Joe Biden, of course, was Donald Trump. We were so afraid of the other guy. We thought whoever the Democrat is, he's going to be better than the other guy. Now, Joe Biden's got to go run on his own record. And I'm not picking on Joe when I say that's always tough for an incumbent. And without the fear of the Trump to inspire, I worry about Joe's reelected prospects. But before we get there, man, we got to win some midterm seats here in the state of Wisconsin, where I live, Connor, and I think you live. If we don't win this governor's seat, if we don't find a reason to be supportive of our current governor, Tony Evers, I mean, there's nothing but chaos behind this guy. If it's Rebecca Clayfish, I mean, we're back to the Walker days times 10.
The last thing, holy mackerel.
Holy mackerel, man. Yeah. Connor, thanks for listening. No, support our president. If anything, I wish we were bragging more about the accomplishments of this president. You can say, what accomplishments? And John Nichols, and I meant to get to this with John. John said, we should have found a legislative agenda for Manchin and Sinema. We should have gotten them involved. They kind of did get involved. They were part of the smaller infrastructure deal. They were part of the bipartisan deal. And in fact, I think a big part of their opposition to the bigger deal is somehow it might have diminished the star of the two bipartisan, the centrist Dems, right? But they did have an agenda, and they got their agenda through, and their agenda became law. And I always told you folks, and I hate to be right as often as I am, like 63% of the time, I'm right every time. But I told you we would never get two bites at the apple. We would never get a second infrastructure bill. So you could either go big and you could take what you could with only Democratic support, or you could take the bipartisan bill. Well, Joe Biden can still claim bipartisan accomplishment, smaller infrastructure bill, smaller than I would have wanted, but it's still a win, and we should talk about it. Come back, more Devils.
I beat the socialists. That's how I got elected.
Congratulations for staying awake all day.
Let's go, Brandon. I agree.
Holy mackerel, folks.
Uh-oh, Brad's buzzed. Oh, yeah? Yeah, he's starting with the woots. Good thing is, he knows when he's buzzed.
Know your buzzed warning signs? Call for a ride when it's time to go home. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
600,000 Wisconsin families are receiving checks to help take care of their kids thanks to the expanded child tax credit passed by Joe Biden and Congressional Democrats. Ron Johnson voted against these checks for Wisconsin families despite voting for a 2017 tax break that put more money into the pockets of millionaires like himself. It's time to vote Ron Johnson out of office. MoveOn.org political action, paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertising. Poll.moveon.org, not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
Treat yourself to some Wisco Home Goods natural lotions or sugar scrub in 2022. I'm Don, one of the owners of this family-owned Midwestern business in Madison, Wisconsin. Our natural hand soaps, lotions, and sugar scrubs offer you the luxury you deserve. Wisco Home Goods self-care products come in a variety of scents you're sure to love. So go on, add a little pampering to your daily routine. Order at wiscohomegoods.com. Natural, healthy, nourishing self-care and more at wiscohomegoods.com.
19, brought to you by CDC and the Ad Council.
Feel like your emotions are all over the place? A healthy routine that includes enough sleep, exercise, and proper nutrition can help you feel more centered.
Find more self-care and coping tips at coping-19.org.
Hi, folks. This is Kirk Bankstead of the Minocqua Brewing Company, and I'm excited to announce our new beer, AOC IPA. This IPA pays homage to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a champion of the progressive movement. AOC IPA is now available in stores throughout Wisconsin. Check our website, MinocquaBrewingCompany.com, to see which stores in your area are carrying it.
%60 of the time, they're right every time. The Devil's Advocates.
I've heard this song like 3 times in the last 2 days.
Really?
If you could just follow it up with a little Freebird.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's Skinnerd, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been lots of Y's in that name.
I do my Pandora channel, and I often hear a little Skinnerd thrown in for good measure.
And they're not Welsh either, with all the Y's in their name.
No, they're not. So Dick from the garage sort of stole my thunder on this headline, but despite I'll still share it with the fair audience. January 6th committee subpoenas Rudy Giuliani and 3 others. It's getting interesting, Fancy.
Rudy's excited that somebody wants to interview him.
The House Select Committee investigating the January 6th riot. Is that what we're calling it these days? CNN, a riot, issued a subpoena Tuesday for Rudy Giuliani, a central figure in the former President Donald Trump's failed bid to overturn the 2020 election on the basis of unfounded allegations of widespread voter fraud. In addition to Giuliani, the committee issued subpoenas to 2 other attorneys who pushed various election fraud conspiracies on Trump's behalf, Jenna Ellis and Sidney Powell. Now, Jenna Ellis, she sat alongside. Wasn't she there when Rudy was bleeding hair dye?
I don't know, either that or she was next to him for the fart.
In Michigan.
Possibly.
I'm pretty sure Jenna Ellis.
It may have bled over in between but the two.
I think when Rudy farted during testimony in an open chamber in Michigan, she did react. You could see her eyes. She, she's like, oh my God.
But did Rudy react? I want to know if he knew or if he just pretended.
Who doesn't know? Come on, he knew. Former Trump campaign advisor Boris Epshteyn, who was among those working with Giuliani at the post-election Willard Hotel Command Center, was also subpoenaed Tuesday. Here's a quote. It's a short article. The 4 individuals we've subpoenaed today advanced unsupported theories about election fraud, pushed efforts to overturn the election results, or were in direct contact with the former president about attempts to stop the counting of electoral votes. According to Benny Thompson, Democrat, he heads the committee, right? The subpoena mark a significant escalation in the sweeping probe as the committee is now seeking to compel cooperation from those at the heart of Trump's push to overturn the election, including Giuliani, who once served as his personal attorney in voter fraud investigations predicated on voter fraud conspiracies. Investigators have been asking witnesses about Giuliani and Powell during the previous closed-door interviews, but now want to hear directly from the former Trump attorneys. Fine ones indeed. A little breaking news from the state of Wisconsin. Assembly Speaker Robin Vos said today, it's okay if Michael Gableman continues his work on the review past the end of February, calling delays the unfortunate result of lawsuits challenging the former state Supreme Court justice's 2020 election probe. Here's one quote to gall you a bit. I've been saying, if it wouldn't have been for the liberals suing us, we would have been concluded by December, Vos told reporters after a committee meeting. If the liberals choose to keep suing us, well,
what?
It will unfortunately have to go on. You can't let these subpoenas die. If you can't let the clock run out because of a bunch of high-priced lawyers suing the legislature.
Are you freaking kidding me?
I told you it was going to call you.
Seriously?
Right? That's what he's saying.
The Republicans have spent $9 million on lawsuits against the state.
Not this particular investigation. This is only 700,000.
Jeez.
I did see actual the mileage reimbursement being sought by Gableman and his investigators.
Oh, he documented something.
Yes. It's written literally on the back of an envelope.
Are you serious?
Pencil style, like Bob drove 20 miles to Beaver Dam and Charlie rose to Brookfield.
Why not get him through February? I mean, we can trust the results of somebody who only meets with people in private, leaves no records of it, and has no records to produce whatsoever. Why can't we trust this guy? I don't understand.
Come on, that was only $1,000. They've been spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it'd be done. But let's not forget, Vos said it would have been done in December. The investigation was supposed to be done by Halloween. That's October. Now you're talking about the end of February. I mean, really, does it really matter what the result of the investigation is at this point? All the legislation you've proposed has already been vetoed. So it doesn't really matter, right? You're just in it for the smear, Robin, right? So let's keep it going. It'll still be going on this summer. Mark my words. They'll be leaking out whatever it is that Gableman thinks he's onto. And now, did you see Gableman is subpoenaing out-of-state voting firms like Dominion Software?
You mean the ones that weren't used in any of the places that he's alleging fraud?
Well, I'm not clear about that aspect, but
yeah, because I'm not clear about where he's alleging fraud either. He hasn't specifically said what that is either.
Whether or not his, subpoenas from the committee, the Assembly Committee in Wisconsin, whether they have, the validity and the enforcement impact over, let's call it, corporations from other states, I'm not so clear. But let me end on a high note. I got one last thing to tell you fine folks today. There is hope for our society. And his name is Geraldo Rivera. Hey, you laugh. I see you smirking. Geraldo Rivera literally fought a Nazi. Do you remember that back in 1988? Got his ass beat, but he fought a Nazi on live television. Here's what his tweet is. In light of the prior fight that, for those that don't remember, Geraldo used to have a TV show, and sometimes it'd break into a fighting session. One day he got his nose broken by a Nazi. A bunch of guys charged the stage. But anyways, here is what Geraldo, the last hope for our society, is tweeting out today. Senate used to be the world's most deliberative body. Lately, it's been a bazaar for bozos. The lowbrow rudeness displayed by senators like Paul and Marshall. Marshall was the guy that, wanted to subpoena Fauci's financial records, even though they're publicly available. I think Fauci eventually called him a moron. Anyways, here's what Geraldo tweeted. The last hope for society. The lowbrow rudeness displayed by senators like Paul and Marshall has remade the upper chamber into the Jerry Springer show. Their savage attacks on Dr. Anthony Fauci have no shame. Thank you, John Nichols. Thank you all that participated. Thank you, Fancy Brian. And thank you for being so polite, guy from Caledonia. Call again tomorrow.
Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
We face real challenges. My name is Peter Pekarsky, and I approve this ad stating that I'm running for the U.S. Senate to replace Ron Johnson because some people see